The room was quiet in that dangerous way, the kind of silence that makes your heartbeat sound louder than the lights. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, eyes sharp and unreadable. The crowd waited. The judges waited. And standing alone at center stage was a man from the Philippines who looked calm on the outside, but inside, his entire life was shaking. Before you hear what happened next, remember this moment, because by the end of this story, you'll understand why this audition didn't just surprise Simon Cowell, it changed everything. His name was Marco Reyes, 32 years old, a warehouse worker by day and a singer by night, though night usually meant a few quiet moments after long shifts, singing softly so he wouldn't wake his neighbors. Growing up in a small coastal town in the Philippines, Marco learned music from an old radio that barely worked and a faded VHS tape of Elvis Presley performances his uncle treasured like gold. While other kids dreamed of becoming athletes or businessmen, Marco stood in front of cracked mirrors, copying Elvis's moves, the tilt of the head, the emotion in the voice, not because he wanted fame, but because singing made him feel less invisible. Life didn't go easy on him. When his father passed away, Marco became the main provider for his family. Dreams were packed away neatly, like clothes saved for a special occasion that never came. He moved overseas for work, sending money home, carrying responsibility on his shoulders every single day. People laughed when he mentioned Elvis. Some said, "That's old music." Others said, "You don't look like him." After a while, Marco stopped telling people his dream. But he never stopped singing. When he finally decided to audition for America's Got Talent, it wasn't because he thought he'd win. It was because he didn't want to grow old wondering what if. Backstage, surrounded by flashy costumes and confident performers, doubt crept in. His hands trembled. His accent felt heavier. His heart told him to run. Then he remembered his mother's voice on the phone the night before, saying, "No matter what happens, we are already proud." That was enough to take one step forward. As he walked onto the stage, the audience gave polite applause. The judges smiled, but there was hesitation in their eyes. Simon asked his usual question, "What's your name, and what will you be doing today?" Marco answered honestly, voice soft but steady. "I will sing an Elvis Presley song." A few chuckles rippled through the crowd. Simon raised an eyebrow, not impressed, not convinced. This wasn't the first Elvis impersonator he had seen, and most didn't end well. The music began. For a split second, Marco closed his eyes. When he opened them and sang the first line, something shifted. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. It was controlled, emotional, and real. The room leaned in. His voice carried warmth, pain, and respect for the song, not imitation, but interpretation. The accent that once felt like a weakness now added sincerity. Each note felt lived in, earned through years of quiet struggle. As the song built, Marco's confidence grew. His posture changed. His movements were subtle but intentional, a nod to Elvis without becoming a copy. The audience stopped whispering. Phones rose into the air. One judge's smile faded into surprise. Another leaned forward. Simon's arms slowly uncrossed. His expression changed from skepticism to focus, like he was trying to understand what he was feeling. Then came the high note, the moment Marco feared the most. He hit it clean, strong, and full of emotion. The crowd erupted before the song even ended. When the final note faded, there was half a second of silence, and then the theater exploded. A standing ovation. Cheers. Applause that felt endless. Marco stood frozen, eyes wide, overwhelmed, tears threatening to fall. Simon stood up too. When the judges spoke, their words felt surreal. They didn't talk about Elvis first. They talked about honesty. About storytelling. About how Marco made them feel something unexpected. Simon finally spoke, his voice calm but sincere. He said he wasn't ready for that audition at all, that what Marco did was brave, respectful, and genuinely moving. He said it wasn't about copying a legend, it was about honoring music and making it your own. Marco could barely speak when asked how he felt. He simply said, "This is for everyone who was told their dream was too small, too old, or too impossible." At that moment, millions of people watching at home felt seen. That audition went viral within hours. People shared it not because it was perfect, but because it was real. Because it reminded them that talent doesn't need permission, and dreams don't expire. Marco didn't just sing an Elvis song, he sang his story, and in doing so, gave courage to others to face their own stages. And here's why this matters to you. Somewhere inside you is a dream you've been quiet about. A talent you've hidden. A moment you've been waiting for. Marco's journey proves that the scariest step, the first one, is often the most powerful. If this story inspired you even a little, take a second to like this video, because it helps stories like this reach people who need them. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more moments that remind us why hope still matters. Remember how this story began, with silence and doubt? It ended with a standing ovation. And the beautiful truth is, your story can change the same way, one brave step at a time. The moment Simon Cowell lifted his head and said, "Okay, let's hear it," nobody in the theater expected what was about to happen. The audience was relaxed, the judges were casual, and Simon looked completely unprepared for anything special. But before this story ends, you'll see how one Filipino singer turned that calm room into chaos, and why millions of people around the world couldn't stop replaying this audition. Stay with me till the end, and if this story moves you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because moments like this deserve to be shared. The man walking onto the AGT stage didn't look like a superstar. He wasn't flashy or loud. His shoulders were slightly tense, his smile polite but nervous. His name was Daniel Cruz, a Filipino singer who had spent most of his life working ordinary jobs and chasing an extraordinary dream in silence. Back home, music wasn't a career path, it was something you did after work, after responsibilities, after reality. Daniel grew up listening to Elvis Presley through scratched speakers, watching grainy performances on borrowed DVDs, memorizing every emotion, every pause, every feeling. Elvis wasn't just music to him, Elvis was escape. Daniel's life was full of sacrifices. He worked long hours, sometimes 2 jobs, sending money back to his family, putting everyone else first. Singing was the only time he felt truly alive, but even that came with doubt. People told him Elvis was outdated. Some laughed. Others said talent shows were for young, confident people, not someone like him. For years, fear won. Then one day, Daniel realized something painful: regret lasts longer than failure. That realization pushed him onto a plane, into a line full of dreamers, and finally onto the biggest stage of his life. When Simon asked what he would be doing, Daniel answered softly, "I will sing an Elvis Presley song." A few audience members exchanged looks. The judges smiled politely. Simon's face barely changed. He had seen countless Elvis impersonators, and most of them tried too hard and felt empty. This felt like it might be another one of those auditions. The music started. The first note didn't shock anyone, but it stopped them. Daniel's voice wasn't trying to be Elvis. It was honest, emotional, and grounded. There was something raw in the way he sang, something earned. The audience quieted. You could feel the shift in the air. By the second line, people were leaning forward. By the chorus, phones were already recording. Daniel's nerves melted away with every word. His voice carried struggle, longing, and respect for the music. It wasn't perfect in a technical sense, but it was powerful in a human one. His movements were simple, controlled, never distracting. He wasn't performing to impress, he was performing to express. Simon's posture changed. His pen stopped tapping. His eyes narrowed, not in judgment, but in attention. One judge smiled in disbelief. Another whispered, "Wow." The crowd began reacting before they realized it themselves, clapping along, cheering between lines. Then came the moment that changed everything. Daniel closed his eyes and delivered the most emotional part of the song, his voice cracking just enough to remind everyone this was real. Not polished. Not manufactured. Real. When the song ended, the applause exploded so suddenly it felt like a wave crashing into the stage. The audience stood up. Daniel froze, hands shaking, eyes filled with tears. He hadn't imagined this reaction, not in his wildest dreams. Then Simon stood. Slowly. Calmly. But he stood.